All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl Soule, and good afternoon to those of you joining us up on Facebook. I'm going to spend the next half hour talking a lot about motion graphics, but really what I want to focus on is some of what's new inside of Adobe After Effects. The After Effects team has been hard at work modernizing After Effects and adding to After Effects new performance enhancements, and I'll talk a little bit about those. Really quickly, I just wanted to point a couple of cool things that happened in the last year with After Effects. First off, After Effects was honored by the Academy of Motion Pictures with a Scitech Award, along with Adobe Photoshop this year at the Academy Awards. So we were really excited to see this happen for After Effects, kind of honoring the 25 years it's been used in both film and television. The other partner to be aware of, if you want to take a look, we have the plaques are actually up at the counter. After Effects is a Netflix Post-Technology Alliance partner, meaning it's an approved tool for delivering content to Netflix. Netflix has been very specific about which tools, what type of cameras can be used for generating Netflix content. They've generated quite a stir in that area, and we've actually seen the camera makers kind of respond to that in different ways. But what I want to point out, Premiere Pro and After Effects are both used for Netflix productions. They're both approved tools as part of this new Post-Technology Alliance with Netflix. Now, some of what I want to talk a little bit about is dealing with motion graphic workflows. And there's been a lot of focus on improving and enhancing the ways that motion graphics can be authored using Adobe After Effects and delivered to editorial in a way that preserves branding guidelines, preserves colors, gives the editors some flexibility to make changes, but not to break things. We introduced this concept a number of versions back, and this is actually a different file format, something called a motion graphic template, or MOGRT for short. Rhymes with yogurt. A MOGRT is a self-contained file that can be installed into Premiere Pro. It lives in a special panel within Premiere Pro called the Essential Graphics panel. But I can create a motion graphic template inside of After Effects, send it to Premiere Pro. I can even share to an editorial team using Creative Cloud libraries so that everybody has the same template, they have the correct branding information, and libraries can be organized by shows, they can be organized by channels. However you want to organize your content, Creative Cloud libraries are a great way of organizing motion graphic content. So I'm going to show a couple of different examples of how motion graphic templates can be put together. And I'm going to give you guys some resources to use if you want to start building your own motion graphic templates. Really quickly, the way a motion graphic template can be put together, let me just scroll down here and let me grab a simpler example here. I'm just going to start with a fairly simple title here. We've got, in this example, a nice kind of fly-in beginning. We've got some text, and then a nice little twist and fly out at the end. Now, to start customizing a motion graphic template and to create a motion graphic template, I would start by actually opening up a special panel within After Effects, something called the Essential Graphics panel. And the Essential Graphics panel actually starts out completely empty, completely devoid of any sliders, any controls, but it is basically where you, the motion graphic artist, design the controls that the editor is going to have access for when this is used inside of Adobe Premiere. So to start with, you'll notice that I've got a number of text lines in here. Those text lines actually come from a subcomp within this, and basically from within any of the comps or subcomps, I can take a property like text, drag it and drop it up into this space here. And by doing that, it's saying, hey, this is already in there. This is actually this one here. I can go in and I can change the name of it. I can put some dummy text in here. And then I can even add additional properties. Now, these properties enable the editor to do some really cool things. Change the font, change the size, enable faux styles, If your editors need to have complete creative control over the fonts, feel free to turn these on. I work with editors that typically want to use Comic Sans for everything, so I'm going to go in and turn these off. Again, it's all about providing the right level of control for editorial without overwhelming the editors with a million selections, a million choices, breaking branding guidelines. Once I do this, I can also go in and start to add additional controls. Now, something that's going on here, I've got all of these different, this is a really nice blue background that you see here, but what if we have different color selections, different choices? After Effects has the capability of generating what are called controls. These are things like slider controls. So I can come in and actually grab under the effects, under expression controls, I can start to add things like slider controls, point controls, and put these in the various layers and tie these together so that various properties actually can change and can be tied to a particular value. What this looks like at the end of this, once I create a slider, I can set a range. In this case, I've got this set to go from 1 to 4. And then using the power of After Effects, using expressions within the composition, this actually can go through and just very quickly update to different colors within my composition. Now, this might be found inside the different subcomps. If I go through and just hit UU to kind of twirl all of these different properties down here, you can kind of see there's different ones in here for red, for green. And if you look at the opacity values, you'll notice that the opacity value is actually, it's got a special value listed here. It's actually tied to an expression. So what this slider is actually doing, there's a little tiny bit of code inside this that's basically saying, if the value of this slider is 1, put the blue layers at 100% and drop the green and red layers down to 0. So by rigging up the various controls in this using expressions, I can create a very simple control for editorial so that they can switch to a different alternate color, alternate set of colors, so that it's a style that fits branding guidelines, but I still have the ability to pick and choose which is the right one to use in my timeline inside of Adobe Premiere. Once I've gone through and created all the controls necessary, I can click the button down at the bottom here to export this out as a motion graphic template. Once I do this, see, it frumiously goes through and does a little bit of housekeeping under the hood. And at this point, let's go ahead and click OK on that. It's going to ask me where to save this. Now, where it's going to want to save this to, by default, is something called the templates folder. This means that it will be instantly available to me locally on my machine. I'll have it available over in Premiere Pro. It'll be ready to just drag and drop to any timeline in any project. But if I'm sharing with a team, I might want to put this in something called a library. Now, a library is an online repository that you can share with a series of editors. It's something that is available to different groups. You can set up read-only rights to that library so that the editors can drag and drop, use it locally on their timeline, but they can't go in and rename or delete any of the content. So rather than having like a share on a network drive someplace internally, people copy things locally to use them locally on their machine. They're using the older branded assets. They're not using the latest and greatest motion graphics. By having it as an online repository in a Creative Cloud library, I have the control. Whoever owns the library can maintain that. And that way, if you do specialty graphics for a holiday weekend or for a special event coming up, the library can stay current, can stay as that one location everybody pulls from. There's also some other options down here at the bottom. You'll notice that there's some compatibility warnings about warn this if it uses fonts that are not part of the Adobe font package. And this also has another checkbox here about warn if After Effects needs to be installed. This is one of the other big benefits of creating and using motion graphic templates. Premiere Pro has the ability to open up After Effects compositions, but you got to have After Effects installed. You have to do any changes to it, you have to go over to After Effects to do those changes. With a motion graphic template, I'm picking what can be updated, and in most cases, that's what this checkbox will warn me if it's one of those edge cases. In most cases, After Effects does not even need to be installed on the editing machine. The editor just needs Premiere Pro, and the engine from After Effects is actually tightly integrated into Premiere Pro. It actually lives inside of Premiere Pro in such a way that these motion graphic templates run natively. They run super, super fast in that native mode. Now, there are cases where you might want to have After Effects installed. If you're using a series of third-party plugins, for example, if I'm creating motion graphics with GenArt Sapphire or something similar to that, then you may need to have After Effects installed on the editing machines for those to run. But again, those are specialty cases. This will just warn me if I'm actually using some of that advanced functionality. Once I do this, this will actually save. And what this looks like as from an editor's perspective, here I am inside of Adobe Premiere Pro. I'm using my graphics workspace here, getting ready to add some graphics, some lower thirds on opening title. This is the Essential Graphics panel inside of Adobe Premiere Pro. This comes with a whole series of different templates that I can work with. And I can also favorite certain templates just by clicking on the little star here. And so if I click the star here, you'll see that all the graphics we're using today are found inside of this panel. If I need additional templates, there are additional templates available via Adobe Stock, including, this is one of my favorite checkboxes in all of Creative Cloud, free. So if you're not using motion graphic templates, if you're the editor, you don't want to design motion graphic templates, just know that there's a bunch of free content. These rotate out on a monthly basis, so definitely take advantage and download them as they become available, because you can click this box. This is going through searching, and it's finding a series of, there's a few pages here. Oh, look, there's some nice ones for the fall, for Thanksgiving in North America, and so on and so forth. Now, I want to use this one. When I drag and drop this to my timeline, just drag this, drop it in right here. Here is that motion graphic template. You can see I've got that wonderful intro. I've got that text. How do I modify it? By clicking on it, the Essential Graphics panel changes and reveals the exact same controls that I had over in After Effects. So anything that I dragged and dropped there, anything that I formatted and organized there, shows up inside of Adobe Premiere. So let's see, get to the finish line faster. If I wanted to change that to smoother, you can see how quickly that updates. And again, with my color choice slider, I don't need to know what's going on under the hood. I just get a bunch of different options here that I can click and choose to update and have the different graphic elements. And again, this plays nice and smooth on my timeline in Premiere Pro. Now we can go further with this. Lower thirds, when we're generating and creating things like lower third graphics, many times we have dozens and dozens of these lower third graphics that we need to work with. It's possible to rig up a spreadsheet. You'll notice down here in my composition, I actually have a .csv file as a layer within my composition. After Effects can actually read common spreadsheet formats like TSV files and CSV files. So rather than having to type in the names of 20 different athletes, wouldn't it be easier if a producer or a production assistant has a spreadsheet with all of the different actors or the different athletes that we're going to be working with? We have the ability to just use a spreadsheet as a source. Now, I can bring in sort of a dummy template into After Effects when I create this, this lower third graphic. The way this works over in Adobe Premiere, I'll just bring this one in here. I have one called Sports Lower Third CSV. And you'll see when I work with this, instead of having controls for typing in the names, you'll notice that there's a little drag and droppable spot here to put a spreadsheet. So now I can open up a Finder window and just point this at the desktop. Here's a CSV file that I want to use. I'm just going to take that CSV file and drop it into the box. And Premiere gives me this nice little user interface where I can see all the different names. I can see the different titles, even the color palettes, which value to use for each of these different athletes. And if necessary, if I need to override any of this data, I have the ability to just click in here and change this to an unmapped value. It's still going to use all of this data, but now I can click in and actually, change a misspelled name if necessary. But what this means is I can now very, very quickly just click OK. And for this instance, let's change this from John Fastrunner to Jane Butterfly. I'm going to use an Option drag to make a copy of this. And now for this instance, let's change this to, let's select this one here. Change this one to my speed skater. If I come back over here, let me just select this one as well. Set that to Jane Butterfly. You'll notice that these can have different values. So now all I really have to do is Option drag, change a slider, Option drag, change a slider, and I'm done. Much, much faster to bring this, these motion graphics up on screen. Now, when it comes to new features inside of After Effects, there's a lot that has to do with motion graphic templates. A lot more properties have been added here. There's new formatting options down here at the bottom where we can add comments or groups to provide additional cues to what these graphics are doing. For example, this lower third is not dependent on a spreadsheet. Here I have the icon choice is a number, but we've actually added commentary here so that I can look at this at a glance and see that 1 is rowing, 2 is cycling, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of work that's been done under the hood as well, working with expressions. And if you're new to expressions, expressions are kind of what I call is sort of a dividing line in After Effects. If you know expressions, you're in the advanced group. If you don't know expressions, you should learn expressions. They're little tiny snippets of code. They can be used again and again to help with some automatic formatting in After Effects. It really unlocks a lot of the power inside of After Effects. If you're interested in learning more about expressions, there is a wonderful ebook that is available for download. Jarle Leopold is one of our master trainers. He has put together this book. It's over 130 pages. And the best thing about it, as a free downloadable PDF file, you can copy the code directly out of the book and paste it into layers in After Effects to get it to work. Now, don't put the camera away just yet, because to get this book, we have a simple URL. Now you can take the picture. Adobe.ly/makemogerts will take you to this book, and definitely a great resource for just diving in and learning about motion graphic templates, learning about these expressions so that you can automate the motion graphic template in ways. There's a wonderful examples in there about sizing text smaller. As you type more text in, it will automatically size to fit within a box. So you can automate and make sure your templates always look good regardless of what the editor does to them. Now that said, I'm going to be running out of time here pretty quickly. I wanted to show you just a couple of other new things inside of After Effects. I did mention that there's a lot of new stuff when we deal with performance inside of After Effects. The team has been hard at work taking what essentially was a single-threaded application written 25 years ago and really separating it out, providing a lot more interactive performance. And slowly but surely, we've been adding additional performance for things like new GPU effects, for dealing with multiple cores. A lot of interesting things still coming. The team is still hard at work at just separating everything out. But even in this release, a couple of new effects are actually up to 10 times faster than they have been in the past. You can see different render times. They're using some of the GPU architectures. There's also, if you're interested in just dealing with some stuff with expressions, the whole team has worked really, really hard on creating a new expression editor where when you're looking at the code within After Effects, it used to just be all a single color. It didn't look like a modern code editor. The team has changed out the entire expressions engine in this release in 2019 for After Effects. And they've added this new functionality here where we can go in and you can customize how the code looks within After Effects to make it very, very easy to see what you're doing. And it's a new engine for error reporting. So as you're writing this code, as you're using existing expressions, it's much more verbose about telling you what's going wrong if something's not quite set up correctly. So a lot of work under the hood just making that functionality better. Now the big new feature that was unveiled this year, it's already won a number of different awards, is something called Content Aware Fill. How many have already seen Content Aware Fill in action? Okay. If you haven't seen this yet, this is a little bit of Adobe magic that the team has been working on. And the idea behind Content Aware Fill is this is a tool that can enable removal of unwanted objects within your scene. So in this example, this is just a really quick example. I have this ball in the shot. I want to get rid of it. Now, there's different techniques for doing this outside of Content Aware Fill, grabbing pixels from other frames and putting them in place. But this is an automated process. The only thing I have to do is select what I want to have removed. And this is a particular challenge because the ball crosses over all the kids. It crosses over the foliage and the tree. There's water everywhere. How hard would it be to remove the ball frame by frame by frame? This is how Content Aware Fill works. Start by masking the object. Set the object mask to a subtraction mode. So now as a subtraction mask, I can see a hole in my video. From here, use the new Content Aware Fill panel. I can expand the hole here using this expansion slider if I need. I'll just put it about 3 pixels just to give a little extra area. And then we've got different fill modes to work with: object, surface, or edge blend. This is an object I'm removing. I'll leave it set to object. And now at this point, I'm just going to click this button here marked Generate Fill Layer. Now once I do that, under the hood, oh, it's already done. I can't even tell you. I ran out of time. It's already done the work. What it has done is it's looked forward and backward in time, looked for pixels that it can put to fill that hole, and then automatically track them in based on the camera motion. There's the end result. Now if I pause, well, you can see the mask. If I deselect the mask, can you see it? Can you see the tracking of the ball? You think you know where it is? Whoops, I did that again. Did you know it was over here? It's really good. In a first pass, it does an amazing job of filling the hole in a lot of different situations. But best of all, what this actually creates is a PNG sequence or a TIFF sequence, depending on your bit depth that you set this for. And those are the pixels that it generated automatically. Now, this can be used in a lot of different situations. I'm just going to show you a couple of them really quickly here. This is one of my favorites because this is a very common challenge that we run into here. Here we've got changing lighting conditions, and of course, the company that makes the motorcycle doesn't want to pay us for putting their logo in the shot. So we got to get rid of it. How many times have you seen logos blurred out? It's kind of always distracting to me. Wouldn't it be better if we could just get rid of the logo entirely? Well, again, this is kind of difficult because the light in this frame is completely different from the light in this frame. So in this situation, rather than using object removal, we can actually use something called edge blend mode. And using edge blend, I'll just turn this on so that you can see it. Here's the end result of doing edge blend on this to get rid of the logo on the motorcycle. Logo, no logo. Show you another quick example of this here. This is from a short film. And in this case, the short film is all about this lone bicyclist traveling on a lonely highway completely by himself. Well, unfortunately, we couldn't shut down the road for production that day. And also, in the time between when we scouted this location and when we got here, there was all this construction. Nobody wants the cone in their shot. Nobody wants that open drain that's been put in there. We want to kind of get rid of and clean up this shot. This is one of those cases where, just like other Adobe tools like Content Aware Fill in Photoshop, we can actually go in and use this multiple times. So the first time I'm doing this, I'll use it on the first car. And that looks pretty good, but there's a little bit of a motion artifact that still gets left over in the shot. It's right about there. Okay, we'll have to run it again to clean it up a little bit more, but let's get rid of the other car. There's the other car, gone. Let's clean up the roadway there, get rid of the cone, get rid of that open grate. And then let's fix a couple of those additional little artifacts that were left over from the first time running it on the cars. At the end of the day, these are all the pixels generated by Content Aware Fill in the frame. Each one of these represents a different masked area that's been tracked, and new pixels have been generated to fill these holes. Again, putting in the background layer, here's my end result of the shot. And I get what I want, which is a lone bicyclist on a lonely highway. So these are just some of the features inside of the current release of After Effects. Everything I've shown you here today is shipping today. You can use all of these features today. If you're interested in more about Content Aware Fill, here's another URL to take a picture of. Thanks to the folks at Adobe Stock, and thanks to Eric Philpott over at the counter over there, we have demo content that you can actually download from this blog entry, and you can play with this yourself inside of After Effects. Feel free to run your own footage on it. I've seen some amazing stuff from some of my broadcast partners, taking characters from film and television and just removing them completely from frames. But we have customers now using this for temp visuals, trying to insert virtual characters into a scene, getting rid of the actual voice actor who's kind of acting as a placeholder. People walking into frame. I hope to never ever see a boom mic hanging down in a shot ever again, thanks to Content Aware Fill. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to wrap up here. We got a wonderful presenter up next, so please stay tuned. And my eyesight is failing me, or I could tell you who that is. But thank you guys so much.